those we have either ingested or through our skin. Because let us assume, as far as actually is concerned, not of us here, I don't think there is anyone that the system is free of chemical.
I think that's about one of the most important questions that you must answer before I allow you to leave that stage.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that presentation. Please, I'll first of all, sorry, my name is Priscilla Udo. I work with Akwa Ibom Springs. Now, I'm a farmer to start with, and then I want to share an information. From what you have said was actually, I'm actually a climate change activist. What brought me into agriculture. Now, there is an association. I was surprised that they had gone to that extent. I'm a member of the association, NWAN, in Akwa Ibom State. Akwa Ibom State chapter of NWAN. That's Organic Farmers Association. Now, they have been able to establish organic pesticide usage for crops. Actually, right now, when I joined that association, I thought it was a joke. Some of my friends know that I don't even buy inorganic eggs anymore. Because of that association, we already have chains of persons committed to organic poultry rearing, organic goat rearing, piggery, and implanting also. So what I want to ask Action Aid is, because I'm always tired of talk. Can we do something with the young persons who will be interested to learn? Because like Daddy said something, I grow up to 20 hectares of farm. Now, when you want to say you want to throw the compost, it's not possible. Then you have to talk about even the slashing I pay for, because I know what I'm doing, but I know how much I spend. Now, how would Action Aid help young persons to be trained on how to produce this pesticide massively for purchase? Because that's alternative source of income. Then the second one also is organic fertilizer production. Now, these things are here, but if you don't have the information and don't have access to them, you will not know. That's number one information I wanted to share. Sorry, Nuan could not, President was not able to come here. Then the other part I want to talk about too is, Daddy made mention of cultivating. There is something I have found out. Two things are lacking as farmers. I need to share with us. Number one, we don't work based, the South farmers, we don't work based on data. We don't have data. If you're working based on data as a farmer, the two things that will happen to you is we'll be planting to sell. That is, from the beginning of your planting, cultivation, you will have the market at your heart. So you will know what standard to use so that you have high productivity. So I would like Action Aid to also come into this knowledge sharing, widespread of information. Please, that is key to what will help us. But what we don't know,
asking that first question. Thank you. Please, let's clap for both of them. The issue of tomato is a very, very interesting plant. I happen to have, at least I have done research in tomato for 5 years now, so I know what you are saying. You know, it's a very, very interesting. The breeding system of tomato is very interesting. You know, the mere fact that you will see different tomatoes, you plant them, you will never see those kind of tomatoes again. It's wonderful. They are, you know, so I can understand. But if we try the organic way, I know that your association, you had last week or last 2 weeks, they had a meeting in Abuja, and the tomatoes they brought from their organic farm, they brought, in fact, it didn't even stay 1 hour, everybody bought it. One basket was like 4,000, and in the market, you won't get 5,000 naira for a basket, and it was sold out. So I can assure you that you see, the thing there about this kind of farming is that Mother Nature will always fight back. If you give Mother Nature what it wants, it will give you back what you want. That's why we are preaching this ecological form of agriculture, where we take into consideration the ecology into what we do. I can assure you your productivity will increase, the soil will come back to its nutrients, nature will give you back what you have sown. So it's very important. Even if you don't want to start it at a large scale, dedicate small amount of it and start small. You will see that you will definitely have the difference. How do we stop pesticide use? My brother, the advocate that has stated an advocacy, has given us the answer. We need to step up advocacy of NAFDAC to do their job. NAFDAC is the sole agency responsible for regulating all this. They are in all the states. Like Akwa Ibom State cannot create a regulatory agency, because that is under, if you look at it from the bureaucracy of Nigeria, it's under the exclusive list of the federal government. So there's no way the states can do that. So it is the federal government. That's why you have in every state a NAFDAC office. So it is our job as advocate. What's that association that was named there? What's that your association, man? It is our responsibilities as activistas, and please register me, I'll be a member, as activistas, to make sure that NAFDAC in Akwa Ibom is doing the job they are supposed to do in Akwa Ibom State. Make sure that those pesticides that have been banned are not in use in any of the farms in Akwa Ibom State. So we can start from there. There's a need to expand our knowledge, and one of those things is what we are doing here. Because when we go back, we can cascade it down to, even if it's just at our family level. I went to a meeting today, this is what they said, this is what they said. And that your son will go to another place. My mother said that this is this. So it goes down. Then, not to talk of those agencies responsible for cascading down, to translate it into pictorial, simple English or local languages. It's very important. Most small scaleholder farmers do not know big words, all those big words. No, we need to make it pictorial, make it easy for them to understand. So it's very important. Death rate in Nigeria, well, we might not know whether it's pesticides, but the fact remains that our lifestyle has changed. AC car, AC office, AC house, burger, you're driving, you're eating burger. You're coming down to your office, please go and buy me meat pie. You're coming down, that's the mere fact. So whether it is pesticides, whether it's whatever, what we know is that our lifestyle in Nigeria has really, really changed. It's not like those good old days. And we'll see why in our next presentation, we'll see what has happened now, how we can correct our lifestyle. The issue about GMO. GMO conversation is not, if we start GMO conversation today, we will not finish. It remains that we need to also have knowledge about genetically modified organisms. I have been to a lot of meetings, I've been to a lot of things, and I found out that 80% of us do not have knowledge about GMOs. So there's another, is a form of conversation another day, but the fact remains that we do not have knowledge about that. And you talked about selective peptide. Of course, the last speaker addressed, Madam, you're not listening, though. It's because it's you that I'm addressing your question now. About your rice, she answered it. There are lots of biopesticides you can actually use, or bioherbicides you can actually use for your rice, right? And maybe you can also try, apart from that variety of upland rice, you can also try other rice varieties resistant to some of all these things. Yeah, so you can also try that. Advocacy, yes, we must have condemn. You will sit on your chair and watch network news and you doze off, and that's till the next day. Then all of them will accumulate everywhere, you know? So we need to eat healthy, change our lifestyle. It's not easy, but we just need to do that. Yeah, I'm particularly interested in data in farming. It's very important because most farmers do not really have data about it. And again, we've looked at it in the past, that why don't we have like an agricultural data from planting across the value chain, across all the value chain from the planting to the end. Then we started down, but is the wild one that if you pluck it and keep here, no mosquito will come around here. I don't know I've not seen it here. Okay, maybe I've not gone around, but it grows in the north. It's everywhere. And so what we have done is to take that, extract the active components, and use it to make mosquito herbicide. And it's organic. The leaf itself, once you just drop it here, this pungent smell, no mosquito will get. It doesn't kill the mosquito, but it's a repellent. It chases them away. Yeah. So, and there's also another plant that we know up north. If you plant it around your house, snakes will never ever get there. In fact, I used to remember my mom. She had a poultry farm. We had every day, every night, 2 a.m., the poultry, they are singing. Why? Because snakes have come in to either swallow egg or swallow chicken. So what we did was to plant that plant around the poultry house, around the house, and after that, no snake again. So there are lots and lots of plants that can actually do the job of this chemical pesticide. And let me also shock you that most of all these chemicals you see are derivatives of plant bases. Because at the end, science will come and get the active ingredients. When they structurally elucidate the structure of the active ingredient, they abandon the plant and start synthesizing that structure and becomes chemical. And that's the issue. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for the questions. It's been exciting for me.
Please put those hands together better for Andrew Chibuzo Ilo, PhD. Let me quickly recognize two persons because I will soon make use of one of them. Afyong B. Okon is representative of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture. Please, yes, we're nice to see you. You're welcome. May I also recognize Edidiong Afia, Minister of Trade and Investment. Edidiong Afia, you're welcome. All right, before we have the next panel, let me say something for those of us who are Christians here. If you are a Christian here, let me see your hand. Can you just wave your hand? Okay. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 16, verse 18, for those who believe, the Bible says, if you drink any deadly thing, it will not harm you. Praise the Lord. So, no, it's not a laughing matter if you believe. My wife is a medical doctor. I've been married to her for 38 years. And I believe she's never given me injection yet. Okay? You are quiet now. That's true. I believe that. 2 of my children were caught up in Ebola in London. All their neighbors died. And I texted the word to them, Mark 16:18. He said, if you drink anything, mouth is just an outlet, just as ears, just as eyes, just as head. If anything gets into you, believe it. And they are alive today. Okay. Hallelujah. All right. So for the make good use of the faith you have, and where is that man? Look at him here. Call his attention to me. Your neighbor, sir. Sir, those deposits in your system already. Do something about it in faith, and they'll be eradicated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we move on. There's going to be a short
presentation.
Presentation. Next presentation is going to take a maximum of 15 minutes. Hopefully. No, I'll stop you at 15 minutes. So you use psychoanalysis, selective perception in this part. Thank you very much as he goes into the next presentation. Thank you. And right after that, we shall have 2 panels that will round off today's meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. The next presentation I will be making is titled Securing. Can we put it up, please? Thank you. Yeah. Securing the genetic resource base of our natural resources. The role of Nigerian indigenous seeds, seedlings, and livestock. Yep. Well, I would not go into, because next slide, please. We've talked about, from the beginning of this meeting, we've talked about food security, why we need to be food secure. It's because we need to have food for ourselves, and not just ourselves, we need to have for our future generation. So that's the reason why we are all seated here. Next slide. Now, for us to have a sustainable food system, this food system must be healthy, it must be local, it must be seasonal foods, it must also be healthy for our population. It should help to build our communities, support the economics of local persons by supporting those local producers, processors, distributors, and retailers. Next slide. However, and livestock can be a solution. What are these? They are specific to areas, they are available, accessible, and well adapted to the area, and they are cheap to produce. There's a lot of cultural attachments of these plants, of these animals, to where they are localized. Remember, we talked about indigenous knowledge. They hold a lot of indigenous knowledge from those places. Unfortunately, most of them are still wild because they are still going to get them in the forest or in the bush. Now, very important. Next slide, please. That's a stop. Yeah. Very important is the fact that these indigenous livestock and plants hold important food items and are very, very important in our household feeding. Afang soup, for example, is a household name in Akwa Ibom State. It's also a household name all over Nigeria. So it's very, very important in our food system. Indigenous plants help to improve nutrition. Like I was saying before, it helps to bring a translation from the Western style of diet, which is high in fats, high in sugar, cholesterol, and the rest of them, to traditional based diets, which will help reduce the incidence of non-communicable diseases. Of course, we know them: diabetes, obesity, heart diseases, and some form of cancer. So we are saying, like we said before, there's a possibility that all these things have to do with our lifestyle. Now, if we're able to move from this Western style of diet towards this indigenous or local way of diets, we might actually be reducing the level of non-communicable diseases. Next slide. Now, let's compare. We did a comparison of mainstream food, rice, for example, and an indigenous plant. Quinoa, it's a, how will I put it? It's a very, very important indigenous food in Southern America, especially in like Bolivia. So we compare the energy. This FDA data shows that 100 grams of this, when you compare it with rice, you find out that there are more proteins than rice, more fiber, more iron, and more folate in that than rice. So what it means is that some indigenous plants might even be more nutritious than our conventional foods. And now this is another data from the World Vegetable Center showing us that indigenous vegetables are, have a high potential than the other normal conventional plants, tomato, potato, mango, and the rest of the indigenous. The rating frequency is quite high for indigenous vegetables. So this is just to show us, give us data when we are talking about the importance of indigenous plants. Now, to come down to Nigeria, Nigeria, we know that Nigeria is very rich in diversity. I love this part, from Ilela. I don't know if Ilela, of course, Baba in Sokoto, you know Ilela now? Yeah, fine. Ilela is the border town within Nigeria and Niger. From that, as far as that place, to as low as going to Abak, we found out that Nigeria is indeed rich in diversity of these plants and animals. So what did we do? Next slide. What did we do? We set out, myself and Azubike, set out to do a compendium of indigenous seedlings, and livestock, which is vital to the heritage of Nigeria. We set out to look at biodiversity preservation and promotion. Now, our recommendation was based on the fact that you can actually have this and use it as a form of agroecological practice. You talked about data. So this is one of the data we're providing our practice in agroecology. Next. So we found out that this is not exhaustive, that we have about more than 245 plants belonging to 62 families of indigenous plants. These are some examples. Ibibio. Upabuyo? Really? Why is the Uyo inside now? Upabuyo? Are you serious? Yeah. Upabuyo, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. And thank God that, you see how God works. According to my MC, God, the first plant I'm mentioning here is Ababuyo, because we're in Uyo. Please, let's clap for ourselves. So, Ababuyo. Okay, Mumpabuyo. Mumpabuyo is a very, very important indigenous plant. It is not just localized, it is exported for a lot of money. We have Momondica carantia, bitter lemon. We have Treculia africana. I don't know what it's called in Ibibio, but African bread. Okwa. Very highly in proteinous food. I don't know what it's called in Ibibio. Ariam. Okana. Okay, leave that one. I have Editan. If we do not know Editan, I don't know what people, or African walnut. Ecom. Netum africanum, afang. But do you know that one of our studies, go back to the afang. One of our studies showed that the afang we eat in Nigeria comes from Cameroon. Now, let me shock you. Let me shock all of you. Can we listen? Let me shock all of you. I was on, my PhD days, I traveled to Lembe to collect samples. Noise, giddy, giddy, giddy. I said, let me go up and see what is happening up there, in the upper deck. When I went there, the ship was fully loaded with afang and banana. This big banana you see, banana and afang. Before you know it, when we docked at the port in Calabar, the whole of the ship was filled with customs. What are they coming to collect? Custom duty for afang. This is not mouth. Then we did, it then inspired me. Let us do a molecular analysis to find out where does all the afang we sell in Abuja markets come from. So we took samples from all the afang in Abuja market. That's one. We took from Cross River, 2. I took from Delta, 3. And we found out that all of them were related to the one coming from the Cameroon. So what it came is that when they bring it, they distribute it. So maybe you just have local people around. It's not that we don't have. People have their different small farms. But the majority of these afang, yes, it's not coming from Nigeria. So the next slide, we have other forms of indigenous one. We know Fono, Acha. I don't know if you know Acha. Fono, couscous. Couscous, heard of couscous, right? Couscous. This Acha, it is, you see, the plant, those seeds, why people don't know it? Because it's very difficult to process, because it's very, very tiny. But you will not believe that Acha has 3 amino acids that are not found in any plant, in any animal, anywhere in the world, but in those 3, in that plant. That is why it is highly recommended as a food for the diabetic patients, because of those 3 amino acids. Amino acids form proteins, so it's very, very healthy for diabetic patients. But because it's localized, it's still found across that Jos angle, because that's what they eat. Jos people around that Jos area, you find that it's just localized there. You wouldn't know here in Akwa Ibom. 4-winged beans. You know that one. Do you know it? Uyaya. Uyaya. And what did they use it to do? Spicy. What? BP. You see? It's good for. But you see, the thing about this indigenous plant, we only know, like I said, we only know it within. So the essence of this kind of data we did was for us to bring out their value, the value in them, and export them beyond their local environment. Hibiscus, Zobo. Zobo is household name, right? It's not everybody that knows Zobo now, but it's household name. Zobo. But do you know that Zobo is a #1 BP medication? Zobo. #1, not you put sugar, put the Zobo, you put hot water, and #1 BP medication. You don't need to buy, what is those medication? You don't need it. But do we know that? No, we don't. So this meeting is essential for this kind of information. Now, we also went further to look at livestock, indigenous livestock. We found out that there are about 4 kind of goats that are indigenous, or 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, indigenous in Nigeria. We have the West African dwarf, we have the Nigerian dwarf, the Nigerian Sahel, and the Sokoto goats. These are some goats that they are across West Africa and the rest of, but they are indigenous. Their origin came from where? From Nigeria. Also, we have sheep, 3 kinds of Nigerian sheep. Not just, in fact, it was during this study I knew that the sheep in Nigeria were different. Actually, when I see sheep, I never knew that we actually had 3 major kinds of Nigerian sheep. This got me tripping when we found out that in terms of ecotypes of chicken, we have 3 kinds of chicken: the Fulani ecotypes, the Igbo ecotypes, as well as the forest savanna kind of chicken. So chickens classified according to ecotypes are 3. And, ecotypes are 3. But also, when you want to classify chickens again, next slide, please. Based on morphology, we have the normal feathered chicken. We have the frizzy feather. Of course, you know that. Then the neck, the one that does not have a feather on the neck. Good. These are the... I was so surprised in local chickens. Next slide. Then we took further records of the kinds of cattle that are originally from Nigeria. Take indigenous. When we say indigenous, it's not that they are not other cattle, not other sheep, but that their origin is Nigeria. So we have the Sokoto Gudali, the Banjo, the Adamawa Highland, the Ndama, and the Rahaji cattle. Next slide. That's the red bororo. The red bororo is majorly found in the Borno axis, Borno state axis of Nigeria. Then we have this other one, the Wadara, the Muturu. I remember those days when we were young, we would say, if we want to insult somebody, say you're a Muturu. You remember? You're not knowing that you're saying that the person is a cow. You know? So these are some indigenous cows present of Nigerian origin. Next slide. We also found out there are 2 kinds of pigs: the Yoruba black pig and the Nigerian dwarf pigs. Every other, yes, I'm done. It's almost done. Yes. Every other pig in Nigeria is exotic. So why do we need to consider these indigenous plants? I will want to go to the next country. Please, next slide to where you have target policy direction. Continue, yes. Target policy direction. Yes, that's fine. Now, there's a need to have a policy. Remember I said something in our last presentation that if we do not have government buy-in, anything we are doing might not work. So we need to promote these indigenous plants by how can we improve by legislature? How can we improve the legislation of this? How can we promote more research? Remember, we're talking about organic agroecology. How can we, like I gave an example of the tomato, where our recommendation was we need to go back to the indigenous wild relatives to breed more. And if we do not have policies, if we do not have research money to do these things, we cannot. We have indigenous plants. They hold a lot of genetic resource, which we can use in breeding. Nothing stops us from having a combination of Yoruba dwarf pig and that black pig to form a new hybrid pig that will have both traits and have everything inside. It's not coming from, it's not an imported one, but within us. So these are very, very important policy directions. Next slide. This is also very important. How can we inculcate our indigenous plants into our alternative school feeding programs? What stops us? Today we took Milo. What stops us from having a nutrition for children to replace Milo? Or African yam bean, which is more proteinous than cowpea. So these are some form of policy directions we can actually think about. Next slide. How can we elevate poverty by improving Obono? What do people call that Obono again? Ubapa. Look at Oyo. For Ubapuyo. Ubapa. Look at Oyo. For Ubapuyo. Do you get? But what have they done? They have added value to that. So if we must give baobab, in outside they call it kuka. Baobab plant, kuka, everything about that plant, from the roots, the seed, the everything is exportable. And the Americans, the Western worlds have exploited that plant, and they are making so much money. Look at eggplant. That's eggplant in cans. Garden egg in cans. So we need to see how we can add value. Nothing stops that our okazi, our afang, is not well chopped, well dry, and put into. I know one woman, what she does, she prepares ready-made soup in a pack like that. There's oil, there's everything. What you just do is just boil the water, put everything, and your food is ready. And she's exporting it to Canada, exporting those things to China. She's adding value to that, but she just won in 1 million persons. If a lot of people that can do these things. So there's a need to add values to our thing, and of course, it will help alleviate a lot of smallholder farmers from poverty. So, next slide, please. So this is our approach. Our approach is to have an integrated value-based system where you have community agroforestry, home gardens, seed banks. We need to we are providing cost-effective seed-saving initiatives, which will help the smallholder farmers. We've talked about this. Then we need to also have or develop policies, legislature that will include these indigenous seedlings and livestock into our food system. I remember those good old days when the current first lady of Nigeria was still at the Senate. We advocated that she present a motion of high importance. They do that at the Senate, where she stood up and she advocated the introduction of indigenous seed and seedlings into the food system. Remember that time that the federal government created a food security committee. So she came up on the floor of the red chambers to advocate for this. So those were one of the advocacy lines we had for indigenous plants and animals. Now, next slide, beyond building a resilient food system, now we need to look at how we can inculcate these into trainings in agroecology and farm practice. That is exactly what we are doing here. And I hope that at the end of this meeting, we will be able to move it down to various areas in Akwa Ibom State. I want to come back in the nearest future and see that Akwa Ibom is leading in agroecology farm systems. And I want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of us.
Please put your hands together for this gentleman who has done justice to the topics assigned to him. I am happy about the recommendation to go indigenous in many things. For those of you who had graduated from the university up to last year, you graduated with what we call BMAS. From this year, government has introduced CCMAS, which is the inclusion of indigenous activities and knowledge into the curriculum across board. So indigenous medical things, indigenous language, indigenous literature. Look at me, I now teach, for example, Ibibio drama, Ibibio theme. It was not there. So you can as well key into this recommendation in indigenizing what should be put in cans for export, what should be tried in your kitchen that was not there. Cooking is one of my hobbies, and I'm very experimental. So I'm going to borrow a leaf from what he has said. Please, why didn't you come with some samples of that mbukbabuyo in cans? and so on and so forth. I would have loved it to be displayed here for us to take samples home. And I want to challenge ActionAid to make sure there is an exhibition adjunct attached to such a presentation as this, so that members of the audience could just walk up there and pick cans home, if not free of charge, but with a common fee. Put your hands together again for our gentleman. For now, we want to invite a short video. I understand it's not going to last more than 10, 15 minutes. And let's see what that video has to offer. And right after that, we shall take the last two panels. If you have any question on the last presentation, please, you meet with the gentleman. He will not charge consultation fee as he migrates back to his place. He's insisting he will. I'm annulling him that he won't. Please, if you have anything that he raised that you need some clarification or some contribution to make to what he presented, find space to meet him, as we are running out of time and we won't have time again to take questions from him. But put your hands together again. He did quite some justice to his. Yes, can we have that video? While that video is being awaited, may I recognize Mr. Ofonbuk Nelson, Director, Agroecology. Where is Ofonbuk? And right where you are, you can make a comment. I understand you came loaded, you are ahead with comments. I can just jolly well walk down and give you a microphone for your comments, Mr. Ofonbuk. Ofonbuk means good news, I think so. You have good news for this organization. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Prof. With due regards to everyone here, I'm happy to be part of this occasion, and I've really learned a lot, especially from the last presenter. And I want to believe that we are going to domesticate some of the things that we have learned here. I realized that its presentation was actually tilted towards the north and the western part. And I want to assure you that we are going to do what is required for part of our things, part of our plants, our animals to be enlisted in your next presentation. Thank you very much.
So the video you're about to watch is a documentary
with the focus
of
empowering
farmers
young people
that we have
and
trained in
women
some
for sustainable
LGAs in Akwa
livelihood
Ibom
and the
State.
strategic partnership agreement
This is
project
one of the
implemented by
trained and
Action
the
Aid
ADP
Nigeria.
agent. He was the one that really supported the process of that training with our agroecology manual. Action Aid also developed an agroecology manual. We don't have enough copies. However, we can share the soft copy to you. So just listen to see what they are doing as a result of the agroecology training. Okay, thank you. Please.
With the focus of empowering young people and women for sustainable livelihood and resilience, the Strategic Partnership Agreement 2 project implemented by Action Aid Nigeria is empowering women through agroecology practice. Agroecology is a climate-resilient, sustainable agricultural approach that integrates ecological principles into agricultural practices. It emphasizes the sustainable management of natural resources, biodiversity, and the local environment, focusing on the interactions between plants, animals, humans, and the environment within agricultural systems. It involves understanding and working with natural processes to create resilient and productive agrarian ecosystems that is sustainable. This is the story of the beneficiaries of agroecology training carried out by Action Aid Nigeria in Akwa Ibom State.
Mingi is a ken toke. Gida uke genge sento, but Samindi Ibo Ifyok. I'm in Pekemina, mi sin manio, Kikoromi. Anam, I'm in Boya, I'm in toke, Luke, he sends Nangabiba, and I found uke the same color. Utoi Wangami. Anam phone a tight tea. Wangami, Maniana, and Yeke Seba. Eddie no mien, Kusenitari. I'm in the ben, Boyang Nam, say. Na keba amanu ngidi akami nsio ndong uke de mi yena mi iwa mi ekod because iwa mi ki koto mimi so mi ndi na ma ibogode ndong ki iwa mi.
I learned a lot from the trainings, especially about how I can reuse the weed I have in my farm to turn it to manure. That was one of the things I learned from the training.
In this particular training, I really learned a lot. As a farmer, I didn't know that you can harvest water. You can, even if you have a sloping land, that there's a method that you can apply and plant your crops. And mixed farming is also one of the major things that we really learn. That like cassava, you know that cassava is a heavy crops, and you cannot, because of the training that we learned from agroecology, that you cannot plant cassava the same year. Next year you plant cassava at the same portion of the land. Rather, you plant cassava this year, next year you will not plant cassava in that particular portion again. You now look for like beans or water leaf or any other crops and plant in that place. But before, I didn't know that, I didn't have that idea. But because of the Action Aid that that bring this training, and we really benefit from it.
So the agroecology training has really been helpful to me and to other people, other of our youth here in Ibno. Add with the salty type of soil we have, like it's believed that since we are into fishing and we have a salty water, it will not make the plants to grow well. The agroecology, with the help of the neem leaves and seeds, we impacted and motivated my skill. It has actually made me impressed to be a farmer.
Wiki in my training, I say canan near I'm going one see for them because I'm in young. Now came I did come I'm going one out. I'm saying no matter one out of my maid, I can't young okay, was a chimeric pan moon matter, I'm going one out. But only I'm this training. Indeed, young man was a chimeric pan.
My farm has been well impacted by the knowledge I got from the training. I was able to use the weed I get from my farm, the weeds we used to uproot and throw away, which sometimes cause soil erosion and the rest. I reuse them now from the knowledge I got to use. I also learned that I could use the likes of my residues at home, maybe the likes of the peels from beans, to turn to manure. Meanwhile, all we knew then that were fertilizers were NPK and the rest of the chemicals. So I learned that a lot from the training.
Challenge me nke face ke I want me to kwantang because economy is a key phone po. So me give them market me peke de fertilizer and this but tongo ke ndo comment that ke fertilizer in ke key phone de ada manure da mi mbogo kama ngubi kot natural manure nam nanga minke ba nange sento pako.
Before now, I used to stick to cultivating only cassava in a part of maybe in a plot of land. But now I've been able to add the likes of pepper, vegetables, in order to help my farm grow very well. I was able to learn that I can start from cultivating it and eating for myself. From there, others can also see. For instance, a few months ago when I harvested my okra, people saw it and then asked me where I got it from. When I told them it's from my farm, they were like, oh, when next you plant it, would love to buy. So I did not just plant them to eat, I also planted them and then showed it to people and they were interested to buy.
One of the things that I will always think about is how we get money to go and buy the herbicide so that I can use and spray in my farm. But immediately after training, and I discovered that they can use neem leaves to prepare the herbicide, which I will not buy it. It's in my backyard. And in fact, one funny thing is that after producing from the neem leaves, and that they taught me, somebody really admired it. He said, okay, please do it for me. And I do it and I sell it and I make money. Which before, I didn't have idea. Something that I went outside to the board.
Imagine if more women receive the support. Imagine if more women receive the support they need. With government support, these women can expand their efforts, secure their livelihoods and contribute to a more sustainable and food secure nation.